Okay, with WrestleMania pretty much right around the corner, obviously I've been doing my top 30 WrestleMania matches and all that fun stuff, but it's always good to kind of venture out and do something a little bit different and talk about things that not many other people really talk about. But one thing I was thinking about, I wanted to do this video last year, but I didn't really get the chance to. I want to talk about the WrestleMania matches that I like, but nobody else seems to. And I'm not doing this to be contrarian or deliberately get under people's skin or to troll or anything like that, but I do think it's important to like talk about, make it known that there are different opinions and not everybody believes the exact same thing about every single thing that happened in professional wrestling. Some people have different opinions and some people like matches that not a lot of other people did, so I do want to talk about that and just bring that discussion to the forefront. And hey, after this video, feel free to post your lists of WrestleMania matches that you like that nobody else seemed to, and post it down in the comments section, or make your own video talking about your matches, or just call me an asshole for liking these matches. And I do want to make the point that none of these matches are among my favorites. I don't love any of these matches. I just think in the grand scheme of things, they're really not as bad as people say they are, at least not to me, and I get some level of enjoyment out of them. So this list is arbitrary, not really important. I'm not ranking them in any sort of meaningful way. I'm just listing them as they come to mind. One match I wanted to talk about, it was a main event, Triple H versus Batista at WrestleMania 21. That's a match that everybody seems to group in there with the bad Triple H main events, and Lord knows I have bashed Triple H main event WrestleMania matches a lot. Ask me about Jericho and Triple H at 18. Ask me about Triple H and Cena at 22. And I'll give you an earful about how much I despise those matches. Oh, Orton and Triple H at 25. That's another one. The 4-way at 2000 just for the horrible ending and how that basically ruined the whole show. You know, matches like that, I'm fully willing to throw those Triple H matches under the bus. But this one I don't hate as much as a lot of other people do. I don't really hate it at all. I think it's heavily flawed. I've talked about this before. I felt like they booked the match wrong by having Batista sell for most of the match because Batista's not very good at selling, so why would you do that? And if I were going to book the match, I would have done it like Goldberg-Hogan from that one Nitro where Goldberg like took all of Hogan's shots and just kept coming forward, and Hogan only took advantage through like weasel tactics and cheap tricks and things like that. So it would have been like watching almost like a horror movie where except the killer's the good guy and he's chasing this chicken shit bad guy throughout the entire time, and then eventually he wins. And I thought the ending to this match captured that, like the last 2 minutes or so, but I probably would have structured the entire match like that rather than having Batista sell for Triple H the entire time. I thought it kind of exposed Batista a little bit because he's just he's not very good at selling. He shouldn't be doing that. But the match itself I did not think was bad. I didn't think it was a terrible match. It wasn't one of Mania's best by any stretch of the imagination, but as a main event, I thought it was solid, and they did the ending right, and it was an overall just solid, basic match. And that's basically all there is to say. It wasn't great, wasn't fantastic, wasn't one of Mania's best. But when it gets lumped in there with the bad Triple H main events, I kind of go, that one was alright. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't completely awful. And it started Batista's big run, so maybe that's why people hate it. I don't know, but overall, I did enjoy that match. And moving forward from there, let's talk about these celebrity versus wrestler matches. Fans tend to write those matches off as dog shit, and they're just like, fuck it, celebrities and wrestlers shouldn't mix, blah, blah, blah. Those matches are dog shit, and I hate it. And even just having a celebrity involved in a wrestling show, fans just go, no, this is terrible, blah, blah, blah. And when you look at things like the guest host weekly disaster that we were treated to in 2009, I can certainly understand that. But also keep in mind that WrestleMania was founded on the concept of celebrities and wrestlers interacting, and that was kind of the foundation of the original WrestleMania. So, personally, I I think there is value in it. I think there is value in having a celebrity play a role in a big match or a big show and trying to capitalize on somebody's popularity to kind of get more eyeballs on your product. I think it's a good idea. It's just not always executed real well. Times where it did work, obviously, I've talked about Mike Tyson in WrestleMania 14, which I think is probably the best use of that. LT and Bam Bam, even though the match turned out pretty poorly, I thought the build-up was really good, if nothing else. But I don't really like that match. The two matches I wanted to highlight regarding celebrities versus wrestlers. The first one I wanted to talk about was Floyd Money Mayweather versus The Big Show at WrestleMania 24. Again, this is a match that a lot of people seem to crap on. But I enjoyed it. I thought the build-up was really cool. I thought they got a lot of really cool stuff out of the build-up. And Floyd Money Mayweather wasn't a washed-up guy. He was one of the biggest fighters in the world. And having him interact with somebody like Big Show created a great visual of Big Show just towering over this guy. And it was also a fun little promotional tool for WrestleMania 24. Obviously, that was the thing that they hyped up the most. And some fans complained about the paycheck that Money Mayweather got that night and how it was astronomical and ridiculous. But from a creative standpoint, I thought they did a really good job with the build-up. And the match itself, yeah, you knew Big Show was going to lose because that's just the way it works. That's another thing that people don't like about celebrity matches is that the celebrity always goes over, it seems. At least almost always goes over. And so you knew Big Show was going to lose, but the match itself I thought was this wild, chaotic, fun thing where Big Show was just throwing Mayweather around and throwing all of his bodyguards around and all this stuff. And Mayweather basically had to use everything but the kitchen sink to take Big Show down. So I thought the match was fun, if nothing else. Of course, the crowd booed Mayweather because they're wrestling fans and they were fully in Big Show's corner. But I thought the match was fun to watch. Again, not one of my favorites. I'm not saying it's a great match, but I thought it was entertaining and wild and crazy and a fun part of the show, if nothing else. So I did enjoy that. The other one I enjoyed that everybody hates, and I've seen it get negative 5-star ratings. I've seen it get listed very high on worst WrestleMania matches of all time lists. But Roddy Piper versus Mr. T at WrestleMania 2 in the boxing match. Again, I fully understand why people hate this match. It's a boxing match, not a wrestling match, and because it's a boxing match, the actual fighting looks fake and staged, and it doesn't look very good. And maybe the match went a little too long, and those are reasons to hate the match, and I fully understand it. What makes the match work for me is Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper's character was so great in this match. In between rounds, he would throw temper tantrums. At one point, he took his stool and threw it at Mr. T in between rounds. He acted like a dick the entire time. And I think, if nothing else, Roddy Piper's character was so entertaining and such a dick that kind of carried the match and made up for a lot of its deficiencies and made it fun to watch, at least for me. I really liked the finish where he body slammed Mr. T to get disqualified. I thought that was great, too. And I don't know, it was just Roddy Piper's character was so entertaining that I just kind of overlooked, all the deficiencies with the match and just kind of accepted it as a showcase for Piper's character and not much else. So, I thought the match was fun, and I know I'm one of the few that thinks that, but I did enjoy it. Again, just for Roddy Piper being Roddy Piper, I thought the match was a lot of fun. And of course, we're going to jump to WrestleMania 9 here, one of the most heavily hated WrestleManias of all time. This match, ever since I got onto the internet and I started going to wrestling fan forums and having discussions with people, The Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez has always been listed as, if not one of the worst WrestleMania matches, the absolute worst. It was number one on a lot of lists, and I never understood why. I was like, really? That's the match we're going to go with as being the number one worst? I always kind of liked this match. And yes, Giant Gonzalez was dog shit as a worker. I fully acknowledge that. I am in no way defending Giant Gonzalez as a worker. I remember watching him as El Gigante or El Gigante or however you pronounce it. And he was awful in WCW too. He's he's a guy that they hired for his body, but his body wasn't even that good. He didn't have a great physique or anything. He was just big. And that was all he had. He was just a really big guy. And that's the only reason he was hired. But as a worker, he was complete and utter dog shit. And So most of his matches were shit, and I fully acknowledge that. But I enjoyed his 2 pay-per-view matches with Undertaker. I thought their SummerSlam match was alright, and I thought their WrestleMania match was alright. Again, not great matches, but personally, I think this was Undertaker's 3rd WrestleMania match. It was his 3rd. And I think it was the best one up to this point, quite honestly, because the match with Snuka was a squash match, and the match with Jake had a cool finish, but not much else. I thought this one was actually kind of fun. You got the cool stare down where Undertaker's opponent just towered over him. And I thought they did some cool stuff here with Undertaker being thrown around like a rag doll. And keep in mind, Undertaker, I mean, this match was not very long. So when people say the match was boring, I kind of goes like, look, the match was only like 5 or 6 minutes long. Can we, how boring was it really? And after, the match ends with Giant Gonzalez knocking Undertaker out with the ether. And that's a bit over the top, but you get that visual of Undertaker being taken out of the arena on a stretcher. Then the gong hits, and Undertaker storms right back down to the ring and knocks down Giant Gonzalez. And personally, I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was a pretty cool moment. Probably Undertaker's first really cool, WrestleMania moment. And everybody just kind of writes the whole thing off because they thought the match was dog shit. And I think a lot of it stems from the fact that, everybody just thinks that Giant Gonzalez is dog shit, and he was. And so they write off all of his matches as dog crap. But personally, I thought they did some cool stuff in this match, and it was inoffensive, and I thought the ending was pretty cool. So I don't hate this match. If I was going to pick a worst Undertaker WrestleMania match, it would be his Hell in a Cell match with Boss Man at 15. I think that might be the worst match of Undertaker's career. It's either that one, the Hell in a Cell, or the Concrete Crip match from Great American Bash 2004, which that match deserves a lot more hate for being one of the worst matches of all time, and it never gets it. And it kind of upsets me that match never comes up in a discussion for one of the worst matches of all time. That match was dog shit. And I feel sorry for anybody that paid for that pay-per-view to see that as a main event. That match was fucking awful. But Gonzalez and Undertaker, I didn't think their matches were that bad. And again, I liked their SummerSlam match too, so that was about as good as you were going to get out of Gonzalez, which isn't saying much, but I did enjoy their 2 matches. So, yeah, maybe I'm weird, I don't know. But the last group that I want to talk about, group of matches that everybody seems to hate and I actually enjoy, all come from WrestleMania 7. And a lot of people put down WrestleMania 7, and I said it's one of my top 5 favorite WrestleMania shows ever. So I have a lot of appreciation for WrestleMania 7, and there's more to that show than people give it credit. And some of the matches on there that people hate Warlord and Bulldog. And yes, a lot of the early WrestleManias had these kind of low-card filler matches that just kind of got thrown on there as filler. And they would only go a few minutes and kill time and get some guys on the show. And, modern WrestleManias, you see that now in silly backstage segments where they try to cram comedy into the show. So, would you rather have a 3-minute match or would you rather have a stupid comedy segment that's not funny? I don't know. Take your pick. But this match was a good match. And again, Warlord, dog shit worker. That dude was nothing but a body and that's it. Dude was a terrible, terrible worker. But I thought him and Bulldog had a really good kind of big guy versus little guy. Davey wasn't a little guy, but he was compared to the Warlord. And I thought they had a good power match there and worked it around a basic story that British Bulldog, can he break the Warlord's full Nelson? He did and won the match. So, it was a basic story, basic match, good low-card match. And it was fine. I thought it was a good match, but people kind of just, they kind of just look at the Warlord and go, oh, that's dog shit. But I thought the match was good. I thought it was a good, exciting match, and it allowed Davey Boy to show off some of his athleticism, because typically he was used as more of a power guy, but here he was able to fly around a little bit, working with a much bigger opponent. So I thought that made the match a little bit more interesting. And I don't know, I enjoyed this match. Another one was Mr. Perfect versus Boss Man for the Intercontinental title. I think this might be Mr. Perfect's best WrestleMania match. Because he never really got a chance to have like a really good, great WrestleMania match, unfortunately. But he had the match with Luger at 9, and that one was solid. A lot of people kind of shit on that one too, but I thought that match was solid. He had the match with Blue Blazer at 5, which was just a filler match, but a really good filler match for what it was. Bossman and Perfect was probably Perfect's best Mania match, and it was for the Intercontinental title, so it had a heightened significance to it. And they worked this storyline where Bossman was going through all of Bobby Heenan's guys one by one to get to Perfect, so it was like a culmination of something. And Andre the Giant made an appearance, which was kind of cool and heightened the match a little bit. And I thought Bossman and Perfect meshed together really well. I think Bossman is an underrated talent. At one point, the dude was really talented. I mean, you have a 330-pound guy that could really move in the ring. And again, I think people kind of remember him for his later years where he'd slowed down a lot and wasn't very good. Although, in 98, 99, that's probably the best Bossman ever was as a character. But he didn't have the in-ring skills to really back it up. So it's really funny how, like, the early 90s was the best he ever was as a worker, and the late 90s, that's the best he ever was as a character. And, God, if you could mix the two, you'd have a main event talent on your hands. But I thought Bossman was a good big guy, and Perfect, you know, he was Kurt Hennig. What do you expect? He was great, too. And I thought they had a nice, exciting little match. And with all this craziness going on with the Heenan family interfering and Andre getting involved and... you know, just the athleticism of the two. Perfect selling like a madman, and Bossman able to do a little bit more with Perfect than most big men, because, again, he was a very agile big guy at the time. So I thought it was a good, exciting match, and people kind of write it off and don't really remember it. And, you know, you look at WrestleMania's history, what are the best Intercontinental title matches? You got Savage and Steamboat, you've got Brett and Piper, you've got the ladder match at 10... That's really about it. Warrior and Rude at 5 to a certain extent. You don't have many like really good Intercontinental title matches in WrestleMania's history, but this was a good one. This was a really good one, so cool beans. I like this one. And moving forward from there, more WrestleMania 7. Speaking of title matches, I liked Hogan and Slaughter in the main event. I know a lot of people didn't. They thought the build-up was in poor taste. As a kid, I just kind of bought it as the ultimate good versus evil kind of thing. And, yeah, it was very exploitative, but Sergeant Slaughter played that character to the hilt and about as well as anybody possibly could, and I thought he did an amazing job with it. And it really was a great, great heel for the storyline, and I thought it came off well, and I thought it was again, not one of Hogan's better Mania matches. You look at his better ones, you think match with Savage, match with Warrior, match with Andre, and his match with The Rock. And you think of those. I don't put it in Hogan's like best class, but for a solid main event built around a wacky storyline, and with the red, white, and blue America theme and all that stuff, I thought it was fine, and I thought it ended the show on a good note and gave the fans what they wanted in the closer. So I enjoyed that main event, and I'm perfectly fine with it. So, whatever. And one final match I want to talk about, again, from WrestleMania 7, Jake the Snake Roberts versus Rick Martel in the Blindfold match. This is a match that, again, people seem to write off as dog shit. Although more people seem to like it now. I think that match has gotten a little bit more respect over time. But like I talked about with Taker and Gonzalez, when I would see worst WrestleMania matches of all time lists, this match would be at the top of a lot of lists. And it's generally regarded as one of the worst matches in WrestleMania history. And it's based around the fact that because both men had to act like they were blinded and they were wearing blindfolds, there wasn't a lot of action in the match. And that's the general consensus, is that because there was no action in the match, it was shit and blah, blah, blah. Personally, I think the match is a great display for Jake Roberts' in-ring psychology that so many people praise him for. I don't think too many guys could have pulled that off. I really don't, because that's a tough match to pull off. And Jake knew exactly what to do with that concept. He would just go there, and being the babyface, he would point. It's like, all right, use the fans to help me find Martel. So it involved the crowd. You got crowd participation, and it's arguably the loudest the crowd was the entire night, because it was a match that was centered around crowd participation, and they got it. So I thought Jake did a really good job with that, and acting like he was blind. There were points where he would just walk around and kind of change direction, and the crowd would yell, no, 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 the other way. And again, I think Jake Roberts is probably the only one that could have pulled that match off. And I thought the feud for this match was great too, and they built it up for months and months and months. And so it's one of Jake Roberts' more underrated feuds, because I thought they did a really good job with the build-up here. And speaking of Martel, he played his role well too. He provided the comedy. where he would swing a chair and Jake would be nowhere around him and he'd miss, or he'd start punching at the referee because he thought the referee was Jake, or he'd fall outside the ring and trip and fall, or he'd drop an elbow when Jake's not on the mat, and all kinds of wacky stuff like that. I thought Martel provided the comedy, and the whole match was basically centered around giving Martel his comeuppance for blinding Jake 6 months earlier. So I thought the match was really entertaining. I think it's one of the high points of that particular WrestleMania, and a lot of people just kind of write it off as dog shit, and I liked it. I thought it was entertaining. I liked it, and I'm finding more and more people are warming up to that match, which is a good thing because I think it is. I think it is really interesting. I've always kind of believed that creativity stems from how you're limited. Like, if I take something away from you, let's see what you can do without that thing. And if the possibilities aren't limitless, if I restrict you, what can you do with it? And I think that can lead to some great creativity and great, interesting things. You see it in movies and television shows, and I think you see it in wrestling sometimes too. And this is a match where both guys were heavily restricted, and they came back and made it work. So, and made what I thought was a very entertaining match out of it. So, that's my list. All the WrestleMania matches that I like that nobody else seems to. So, again, post your lists down below in the comment section, or make your own video responses, or just tell me that I'm full of crap and that I'm stupid for liking these matches. Do whatever you want with this, but I just wanted to bring up the discussion because I do think it's very interesting and a lot of fun to talk about. And yeah, so until then, I will see you all later. We continue on with the road to WrestleMania, and I'll have more videos for you in the near future.